Hi, Alexander. Nobody came to my office hours. Welcome. I don't know if you wanted to chat or you wanted to listen in.
How's it going? Yeah, I was just gonna listen in here.
Oh, that's no problem. It's going well. Going well. I guess I could talk at you. Or did you have any thoughts or
Well, I actually haven't been following too closely. So I mean, if you enjoy
Sure.
giving a little summary, I'll give you like 2 seconds on myself.
Yeah, I don't think we interacted directly, so please, yeah.
No, I've been in the hedge fund space for the past 12 years at different credit and equity shops. Most recently managed a book of 200 million RMBS and structured product investments, and about a year and a half ago, transitioned into the blockchain space and um, launched a fund with my brother, and then split off, and more recently got a more real world asset DeFi oriented fund up and running, and that's called Procession Capital. And we had a post on the forum not too long ago, and I'm actually splitting off to launch another fund by myself and one other partner. So
Awesome. Well, great to meet you.
yeah.
So terrific. So then you're following the conversation and what's happening at MakerDAO very closely, a little bit.
So I haven't. So last time, sort of interacted with folks over there was with Christian and was it Greg or I forget the guy he works really closely with, but
Sure.
that was about 2.5 or 3 months ago. I know a lot's been happening. So
Okay, yeah. I just wanted to, before I launch in, just wanted to kind of orient myself. So I've put forth this proposal, and I would say the context really is this kind of transition moment or moment of growing pains for the DAO, given where we are in scale and size and complexity and where we're looking to go. And, over the past several months, I've been a delegate and active in the community since December of last year. And in the past several months, there've been a lot of various threads about the future for the DAO, what the vision ought to be. You're probably familiar with some of those conversations. And I think, in terms of
yep.
there's the substance, but then there's also like the operations, the human capital side of things,
Right.
decentralizing, dissolving the foundation and really just breaking apart into what we have are the core units that are like semi-autonomous, not in a code sense, but their own
Right.
business units in a sense. And what I've perceived, and a lot of people have commented on this, is there's like a vacuum. There's a vacuum of accountability. There's a vacuum of leadership in a sense and coordination. And so we have this very flat structure, and we have a lot of people who are working, and then we have this role of the delegate, the recognized delegate. And I, to be frank, I just, and also for myself in my role as delegate, I have no short of opportunities to work full time on the DAO.
Right.
There's so many. The people in this organization are unbelievable, but I think that there's a challenge when you're working in your silo and you need to coordinate with colleagues, or you're wanting direction. So there are questions that I get asked, or can I review something, or then of course, given my legal background, I see all the plethora of legal issues that I outline in my post, and I just felt there's a need for like some real hands-on coordination that's kind of, I've talked about in terms of like an executive function, like who has the bird's eye view. So there's another forum post that a delegate posted, has to, on whether we ought to have perhaps a council. So, you know, there's this clear need for full-time focus that's going to help assist the DAO. And I've proposed something that's very short-term in nature. I think, you know, for myself, I feel like the issues that I can help support the DAO with, and that they're urgent. And that they're really kind of almost threshold, like kind of getting through the identification, the scoping, are like really crucial inputs toward almost everything else the community is talking about. Like, how much should we lean into real world assets? You know, well, there's no, at this point, real legal analysis on, you know, a host of issues that I think would be good inputs, or whether it's, you know, the tokenomics question, or again, like there's a lot of legal regulatory related projects happening at the DAO. And I've often been asked to kind of participate in those. But again, it's like this question, and I outlined this a little bit in my post, and there's been discussion about it, which is the attorney's work is very like unique. You obviously have worked with lots of counsel, so you'll understand the dynamics there of like how a person cannot, or an attorney cannot just give advice to MakerDAO as a whole, for a variety of kind of legal, ethical issues. There's no client, etc. So I felt I was in a unique position as a delegate, given my understanding of the protocol and the people and like kind of what's happening, to step into, put on another hat and provide some of this kind of guidance and leadership full-time basis during what I think is a transition period where there does need to be like an actual solution toward who's empowered to play that role, that, you know, whether you want to think of it as a, you know, we're having difficulty with hierarchy, you know, talking about hierarchy and not wanting to be a hierarchy, not wanting to be a corporation. But we kind of, I don't think, can continue operate. I don't think the DAO can achieve its goals and meet its potential, and its people are not well utilized if we just sort of continue. Well, two things. We could just sort of revert back to like, okay, well, we sort of have one person in charge, like a figure, like one strong person who's sort of dictating. Or what would it look like to, I think the council idea is really interesting. What does a new form of kind of distributed, I think like distributed leadership and accountability look like?
So, yeah, I mean, it seems like there's a problem of too many cooks in the kitchen with too much partial input or too little input. You know, I think a lot of people have helpful opinions and perspectives on different issues, just glancing through the forums on different topics. But you know, there definitely isn't one person seeing each of those things through all the time, let alone overseeing everything from above. As it stands, what's the de facto hierarchy? Really, like in your opinion, you know, does it just come down to currently voting power among top like 50 concentrated individuals and institutions? And that
yeah, you know, it depends on the topic, because, you know, it depends on the vote, and the token holders can kind of mobilize in different ways. We saw that pretty spectacularly last week in terms of a record number of MKR kind of connecting and voting for particular.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like as it stands, we're effectively somewhat worse off than your typical public company. Just comparing it to decentralization, it seems like decisions get concentrated at the top, and there's when it comes down to action, there is discussion behind the scenes, but who knows if it's a consensus in the I don't know long-term best.
Well, I think legibility, I mean, one thing about, I think which is interesting about the role of an attorney is it's inherently kind of neutral, right? Like you're working obviously in the best interest of your client. But, something that a lot of folks in crypto don't realize is that from a legal perspective, you don't want to have commercial skin in the game. So like typically a lawyer will not also
Right.
have business interests in common with their client, because then if you have something to gain financially from the very person you're trying to represent, it could cloud your judgment in terms of legal issues. And what you want from your attorney is like, I need the facts, I need an assessment of the risk. And that's what the lawyer is going to give you. And then you, the client, makes the business decision. So I feel like, this quasi, like, so the legal role that I could play here is very different from like advocating for a particular point of view, or for supporting a particular proposal, or for saying, we should be leaning in this percent on this type of real world asset. I mean, like, so this is also why, sort of doing more in my current role as a delegate doesn't make sense in a lot of ways. I mean, it doesn't make sense, you could say, in terms of the incentives or the opportunity cost, but it's also just positionally like not a helpful seat to do some of the work that I think would be most helpful right now for the DAO, which is like
Right.
legibility. It's like readability, like what is going on, who's on first, like,
Right.
what's the sort of, what are we even talking about? Right. So, I mean, like, so I feel the DAO's kind of got really super capable people who are executing, but I've talked to a lot of them. I spent time, I listen, I've like shown up to office hours. I mean, they're also saying like it'd be helpful to have a little bit more like direction. And something that I was been reflecting on in terms of, hierarchy or what have you, it's not all bad. It's not all about like, oh, this person's bossing me around. There's also a lot of like protection. There's a lot of pain the managers take on behalf of their team, right? So there's some usefulness in having, I think, a buffer between the politics, which is a huge drain on our productivity. So that all the dynamics in the forum are people who are like the forces of this DAO also have to like manage a lot of stuff and worry about things that I'm sure they would much rather just execute all day.
Right.
And so
my sort of feeling was that most of the things are going on behind the scenes. The forum does have, especially when it comes to real world assets, it does have a lot of helpful insight, and information to reference, especially, some of the detailed stuff, and most of it is, or it seems like a lot of it is fleshed out, before it gets there between people at Maker and different investment funds or other institutions. But yeah.
I mean, that's also something we're struggling with, which is like the practicality of doing business and getting work done.
There's definitely not enough people to handle it, and the process isn't down, and it's all brand new, and everyone's trying to figure out. I mean, like when it comes to real world assets on the legal side, I mean, in my opinion, I sort of look at it two different sides, because my whole career I've been on credit and equity side. So, and the fund I had with my brother was like a token fund, just to give you like, I'm coming from both sort of angles of looking at the business as well as credit pools. And so like when it comes to Maker, in my opinion, it's become way more obvious, and I think this is where a lot of the efforts have concentrated, is real world assets are the only differentiating and the highest potential sort of prospective path for the protocol to generate value and be competitive and build a moat, and to be able to do that, you have the same story as Centrifuge and Goldfinch to some extent. Same problems they're facing, which is fleshing out all the legal
Yeah.
structures, standardizing it. Because I just, I've been trading structured products for a long time, and I know for a fact, like most of the material buyers across the traditional space, they can't touch it and they can't get comfortable with it because it's too nuanced and the collateral's too niche and their originators aren't strong enough. And those are the sorts of things like people want to get involved, but that's, in my opinion, sort of should be the highest priority. For if I was going to buy the Maker token, I feel like I would want everyone to be focusing on that. Like everything else is sort of subpar.
You've hit it, Alex, and we have someone from the real world finance team who can comment more. But, just from my perspective, kind of, putting forth this proposal to say, I'll step into this interim role. And I really mean it as an interim role. So like, if there's some council that's organized, I'm not interested really in a seat on that council. I'm more like ready to be a hired gun to kind of try to facilitate that. And I believe I have some of this sort of skills to do that, so that the teams can focus on execution to the extent that there's distraction and morale and discouragement and noise given our current, just some of the current dynamics. And, we definitely need to transition to more, a different kind of organizational model, as well as for the governance. But what can happen, and what to some extent I feel is happening, you can kind of, with the open community, can get all kinds of dynamics going. And then it's just kind of sparring for sparring's sake, or spoiling, and who's really has what incentives. And you can create a whole lot of gridlock. I don't want us to get like Washington, DC, where we're just like can't get anything done. And there's something that Maker can do that no one else will ever be able to do, given like the regulations that are coming down.
Agreed. Although I would say everything needs to be organized as quickly as possible, because it's been a while. I've been sort of had my tentacles out, listening for when the institutions are coming, and they're already coming and they're already here, but they're coming in a much bigger way. And every bank across Wall Street, every private equity fund, every hedge fund is figuring out how to do it, and very quickly, you're going to be in a position where they have all the liquidity and the regulated structures. And so, I do agree that, things do need to be organized more to sort of streamline and fast track and keep everyone on point. It's hard to, I do think in general, there needs to be way more outreach, and maybe this requires someone to facilitate it. And there needs to be a lot more discussion with institutions to the extent possible. Like Maker itself, the team needs to be reaching out to some of these larger banks to try to discuss. I know right now they're getting such an influx of people that want to bring real world assets on chain that they just can't even, they're only going to look at, things that make sense, where it's efficient, use TrueFi, use whoever else, and let them, delegate from there. But I do think that you need to take more of a offensive instead of a defensive approach when it comes to that. So I guess what I was trying to pull up your forum post is, are you proposing? Okay.
Let me pull it up for you. So yeah, I've proposed to step in as an interim chief legal officer for 6 months. And this is currently a proposal that's in review and discussion in the community.
Oh, is it in the chat? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I just popped it in, yeah. Hi, Eric. Thanks for joining.
How are you doing today?
Excellent, thank you. You want to grill Do you want to grill me any questions or anything from, this
Um,
is open. This can be about absolutely anything, but yeah,
yeah.
I did specifically, and Alex, Alexander, you may not have had the context for this, but so yeah,
I think I actually spoke with Eric. Sorry. Go
Hey, how
ahead.
you doing? No, I think I was wondering if
Good.
your
How are
voice
you?
sounded familiar. Hey there.
Yep. Yep.
yeah, I had posted this proposal 2 weeks ago, and it created a little bit of a stir. But I'm a really like practical can-do person, you know? So it's like, I see all this discussion, you know, like, well, delegates should make proposals, or Kianga, do you want to work on this? Or Kianga, can you join this meeting? And and that's like, you know, okay, here's my proposal. Here's the work I think that needs to get done. Here's the mandate that I think that I would want to have to embark on the work. And then here's a structure, which is awkward, but I think pretty innovative. So as a
Move the ball.
huh?
It would move the ball.
So, you know, technically what is being proposed is a budget for ACREinvest, which is a company that I'm the founder of, the entity that is the recognized delegate, to retain my law office. And then basically hire, then I, Kianga, the person, would act as a kind of chief legal officer. The name of it really doesn't matter. It's just like within the TradFi, you know, kind of world, this is functionally what I feel is needed at the DAO, and that particularly within 6 months, I could accomplish like some very specific things to set the organization, and whatever is the new incentive or governance structures that emerge, presumably they will emerge within these 6 months, because I think a lot of momentum's building, and there's really, I think, beginning to be a consensus that, you know, some new structure needs to be put in place. And
Hey, you know, can I
yeah.
ask one
Mhm.
suggestion? Is it maybe specify out more what you think should be done in a 6-month period? Perhaps get a little more like people understand, except it felt like there was a lot of confusion. I mean, first there was a lot of pushback, but that is what it is. But
Yeah.
to understand what the
Yeah.
agenda you think should be.
Yeah, sure. I'll definitely, you know, there's a 4-week kind of review period. And so I had Alex and self-imposed a 2-week quiet period. So I posted this on a Wednesday, and I felt that I would not engage in the conversation or kind of like persuade. You know, when you're performing legal services, it's very different than another type of commercial engagement, right? And so it would be, I felt improper, and I still want to be sensitive about this, that I'm not, either by virtue of being a delegate and having like that status in the community, or having like a legal background, which can be used against us, which is why there's rules against attorneys advertising. I mean, there's all kinds of really weird things about being a lawyer that you wouldn't believe, that I want to be, you know, mindful of. And so, yeah, Eric, I will definitely like
I just
look
think
at
there's a
that.
lot of ignorance around what's needed. You know, I mean, from my
Yeah.
perspective, it would be helpful to see the conversation more engaged on actual things that you think should be done, you know, as opposed to people saying that's too much money and you're centralizing and all this. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, but there's also, and I mean, so again, so just to finish the thought, so in 2 weeks, today marks the 2 weeks
okay,
since I posted that, which is why this office hours were scheduled for right now, which is like when I could do this today. And so then this proposal would go into the governance cycle for August. So there'll be another 2 or 3 weeks for discussion. And
okay.
yeah, I really, Eric also wanted to surface from the community, right? Like here, I outlined a lot of stuff that needs to be looked at, a lot of things that are ongoing, and conversations that have been had for over a year within the DAO that tied to legal issues. And it's a question of like, well, what am I going to be doing? It's like, well, this is the list. You need somebody who's full time, is going to like
Drive it.
you know, run interference on all of this, assess all of this, talk, understand, you know, who's, so Alex, to your other earlier question about like kind of the leadership issue in the DAO from a like accountability and responsibility perspective, you know, who knows what's going on, like everything that's going on, who has a reason to spend that kind of, other than you've got people who have particular jobs and tasks, but in terms of the entire organization and all of the opportunities and challenges and risks at this moment, you know, who's doing that? And it's like nobody.
It seems like it's somewhat brute force behind the scenes right now, and maybe, you know, to some extent that might be, you know, beneficial, right, to just on the real world asset side to continue focusing on progressing and moving forward and
But
scaling.
there's no one behind the scenes that knows that really has great visibility of everything that's going on in the DAO.
Who's supposed to think he does?
Well, no, he clearly said he doesn't. That's what he
Oh,
keeps
really?
saying.
Okay.
Is that that's why all this stuff's going on, because
Okay.
it's like no one knows what anyone's doing, and there's all these secret meetings, and it's like, you know, so it's like this the first thing that I think, it's not so much about centralizing power control, it's like surfacing, like its legibility, its communication, its coordination, its information. And there isn't currently, I don't think, in any of the current roles, whether you're a facilitator, you're a delegate, you're certainly, if you're an MKR holder or a core unit worker, like there's no one in it, there's no spot for somebody who's really well positioned, either with like the clear mandate where the DAO has voted to say, yes, you know, this person should be having these conversations with these people. This person is empowered. I mean, one example is that I've heard from core unit facilitators is just like feedback. It's awkward for, and maybe you can speak to this, Eric. It's awkward to give feedback to peers in another core unit, and maybe awkward for them to tell you like what's not working. So I've been directly told, like, it could be really helpful if there was maybe that's something a delegate like Kiaga, maybe it's something you could do, like a core unit could communicate to a delegate or me, like, so here are some things that didn't work well or aren't working, and run some interference, right? Or help, you know, so this what work I'm proposing. I mean, it's hard work. Not only is it substantive, like it's not even so much, I think actually it's probably less like what's the legal answer to X, right? It's really assessing. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it, but I think a lot of it is like, if you were in a traditional organization, you know, what is it that the chief legal officer does, the general counsel of a firm, you know, and then what are the business lines that normally report up into that, you know, human resources and, you know, compliance, all of this stuff. And so I'm certainly not suggesting that I myself am going to like do all this stuff on behalf of a $4+ billion protocol. But what I'm saying is like someone or something needs to step into a different seat that doesn't exist right now. And so this is my proposal, because I don't like just sitting around talking about things. And I'd be pleased to actually get involved, but I'm not in my current role set up where that is the right role for me to play, nor is it really. It just would require resourcing and a separate mandate for me, you know, for me to do that.
I'm with you. I mean, I feel like our governance is broken, but we're finding, you know, as we're working on some other stuff, that it's hard to get consensus to change it. There's a lot of, dare I say, entrenched interests. And whenever you try to make a meaningful change, there seems like there's a lot of folks who aren't happy with that idea, and they're quite vocal.
Yeah. See that in the forums to some extent. Question for you: is this a role that I'm not familiar with Martin, but I just happen to be reading some of his posts or activity earlier today. Is this a role that Martin, I believe that's how you pronounce it, was playing?
Who?
I don't.
MAARTEN.
In what?
I don't know that name.
Okay, so it said he was pseudo-anonymous, but he was handling a lot of the legal proposals like back in 2019, 20, 21.
Maybe someone at the foundation?
Yeah, that would be my guess.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I know the foundation used to have like general counsel and Chief Legal Officer people.
Yeah.
Oh, so let me say a little bit about like yeah, because I know there were some questions about like the proxy concept, and I sort of, that ACREinvest would be the client. And the way I see this as a proxy for the DAO as a whole is that as a delegate, certainly the style of delegate that I am, it's like the interest of the entire DAO. So I don't per se, I mean, I represent my MKR folks who delegate to me or who undelegate for me if they don't like what it is that I have to say or my views. So I'm not like kind of a specific agent on behalf of a particular MKR holder. So I really am voting or sitting in my seat as a recognized delegate, thinking about not even just the interest of MKR holders, because I feel like that's a topic that it really dominates the DAO. It's very internal, and there have been people saying like, listen, and we need to talk more broadly about stakeholders like DAI holders, vault holders, like open up the conversation and the legibility of the community and the ability to be impacted to people who are not just MKR holders or who are not just within a particular narrow role currently within the DAO. So I like to think of myself as that kind of delegate where I'm thinking, you know, very expansively about MakerDAO as a DAO, about the world needing to have this permissionless money, what we hope to preserve that we talked earlier about. You know, it will be hard pressed for any team to come along today and recreate with the runway that MakerDAO has had to this point. And so therefore, just from an attorney representing a client, ACREinvest as a client, you know, I think it's like the best I think we could do, not the best, but anyway, it's an idea because there's no attorney that's going to give MakerDAO advice, and there's no one in MakerDAO that can rely on any direct advice. So, I mean, it's a tricky issue, and we just need to get our arms around it, you know, just, and again, in this role is where it's like, well, who's focused 100% all the time on getting our arms around all of these issues? I mean, we've got incredible, I mean, Christian on Real World Finance, like he's unbelievable. And so the other things, like this role is not replace in any way any of the attorneys or legal work that's going on, because in fact we need to like double triple the legal resources probably and eyeballs and roles that are activated on behalf of the DAO. But that needs to be sort of thought through and coordinated, and those projects need support. Those projects need support as well, and those initiatives need support and some cross, you know, pollination or so, you know, it's really, I think, yeah, we'll see, right? I mean, we'll have some more time on this particular proposal in the community, other votes that are coming up. And yeah, it's great. Like, again, Eric, like I welcome hearing whether people think that this role is useful or not. And it answers the question because it draws a very clear line for me, for Kianga, who's often asked to get more involved in like an operational day-to-day level in terms of what's going on in the DAO. And it helps me kind of really communicate like what does that need to look like for myself. And also hopefully, I mean, I'm also hoping I'm contributing to part of a larger conversation that's happening, and that there's a thread of like, okay, well, we can talk in the abstract about structures, right? We can talk about like, everything's not autonomous. You know, we can put as many white papers out as we want. It's like, who are the human beings who are going to dedicate their full attention to this beast right now, right? So this was also my way of saying, okay, you know, I can arrange things and I'm quite interested and I can be one of those people. But not by myself, right? Also, because like, if there isn't support, then it wouldn't even matter if it were somehow technically passed, because I don't want to spend 6 months. There's no amount of money that you could pay me to spend 6 months of my life accomplishing nothing.
I'm with you. No.
I mean, I think 6 months in a bear market with all stuff, you could be like how long it took Sam Freed, what is his name? It probably took him like 6 months. When did he launch FTX? Like, these are the most precious 6 months ever. Like, people in MakerDAO are very sure of themselves, but they shouldn't be too sure of themselves, because the opportunities every single person who works on this project have right now are unbelievable. It's the best of times.
Maker's got a great opportunity, but I don't know if it fully realizes how Darwinian this space is. And like, we're in a great space, but we're slowing down, and someone's gonna catch us and eat us if we don't get our shit together, is my view.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard what I was saying before you unmuted or joined, but I've been keeping my ear to the ground for a long time now, and institutions are obviously here, but a lot of the big banks, a lot of the private equity and other funds, and they're gaining a lot of traction on the regulated sort of platform side and sort of regulated format for real world asset issuance, and they're all coming from every direction. It's just happening behind the scenes. That's happening on other blockchains too. Just ones people don't talk about.
Agreed.
Yeah, well, it's a great time to be alive. It's a great time to be in the space, and I think, I think we do have to, as a community, unity. I love that it's a DAO and different opinions and not being silenced. All of that's great. But we have to find, there's a way to do that, and there's a way to not do that, or there's a way to do that and basically destroy any possibility of really accomplishing anything in the future. And we don't want to have, I think, that kind of dynamic in the community. And so, having a sense of unity and moving in the same direction is essential. It's essential because, like, who's going to articulate, like you were saying, like, who's going to communicate? We need to be much more outwardly, like, who's going to communicate and connect with the outside world that's uniquely MakerDAO, right? And how can we demonstrate that?
I commend you for taking the step here, because I get the essence of what you're saying too, is the dedication part, taking the leap to full time and devoting your resources and time to the protocol, to help the efforts along, is definitely something that it seems like you need more of, even though you have so many great contributors, across the forums and great minds chiming in. And the dedication does help.
I think there's maybe there's an incumbence, or, if I may, arrogance that is sort of treating people like maybe they need to be like grateful to be here or something like that. And I think some of the discourse around budgets, or there's some hierarchical language that's been used that I think is extremely problematic. And what you see in the sort of newer Web3 DAO spaces, their culture that's much more like, we are co-building this together, we're like co-owning this. There's a very different ethos. And I think if Maker could, it's just an adjustment. It's just a slight to maybe shift in tone, not to let fear or suspicion, which can take root so easily and spread like a cancer, where there's like, no, they're there, but someone's like, hey, there must be there. And then the language that's used that really begins to shape people's like kind of posture toward one another. So, another aside with this role, I would feel as incumbent upon me if I were to take on this role is quite a bit of almost like the HR, the human resources piece. And I feel the DAO has been very technical for a long time. Obviously, it's been a protocol, but now to scale as an organization, we need to layer back in the humanity, the human dynamics, and think organizationally about how we know each other as people. And, this is stuff, we think about the most successful organizations right now, how did they get that way? And, putting their people first and having these kind of very, the non-technical, I think the idea of the Constitution that's out is getting at that. It's like, well, what are the things we're about that's beyond the code?
I've actually started working on drafting a high level beginning of it. I won't be the only one, but.
Oh, beautiful. Great. because I think that now we're at the point where we all want to be, I mean, all of us in crypto, I would say, maybe less so over time, but like, you're inspired by something greater than yourself, or something like very different from the status quo, however you want to define that. And with all of the strain that we're all under and the world is under, we can't sustain this if we don't kind of take care of ourselves as people and make this a little bit more fun. I mean, I don't know. I think a lot of people, it can't be fun to like try and get work done and have people like scream you down on like the forums. And I mean, that's just no fun. So let's have a little bit more fun.
Agreed.
Let's laugh a little bit, let's like, there are groups working on this kind of stuff. Like, how do we recreate the water cooler? How to have asynchronous, a lot of things. So, I mean, it's
Go
just
backwards. You go back to traditional structures for the time being, so you can survive.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, we're 1 minute over. I want to
Thank you.
respect the
I
hour.
appreciate your time.
Thank you so much both for joining, and see you on the forums.
Yep, it was good meeting you. I thought I was just going to listen today.
Oh, I'm so glad that you dropped in. It was really great to chat. Good luck with
Thanks.
your fun. And
Thank you.
Stay involved.
Will do. I'll keep an eye on the forum.
Excellent. And feel free to reach out anytime if you have questions or.
Will do. Thanks.
All right. Take care. Bye.